Down the line, we've got James Johnson, who's the co-founder of the JL Partners, former special advisor to the former Prime Minister Theresa May, ran Number 10's polling strategy. James, a very good evening. Thank you for joining us on Farage here on GB News. So you're polling all the time. I just want to touch first, please, James, on a poll that I think was done by someone else than yourself with regard to the percentage of the population who think actually this is going to have any deterrent effect at all. I think it was YouGov suggested it might only be 1% of the population. Can it really be that low?
Well, certainly at the moment, the public's view is that the flights aren't going to Rwanda, which is the truth. So therefore, like just in your Mark White piece there, people don't believe it's going to happen and they don't believe it's going to have any effect. Now, if that were to change and actually flights started to take off, then I think the public may well change their minds on the scheme. But at the moment, they are looking at this and they're looking at, the government's disarray. And if I were Rishi Sunak, I wouldn't take much heart from the vote result yesterday. It bought him a bit of time, but this should have been an easy, straightforward vote for him. To the voters, this just shows chaos and getting no nearer, in their mind, to a solution.
Do you think with the government's confidence now from last night, that 44 vote victory, do you think in a sense that the Prime Minister might actually convince the electorate a bit more over the next couple of weeks that actually it's on track, he's in control, he's going to get it through the House of Lords, he'll get the support of his MPs, and that maybe in the new year those polling numbers might improve for him in terms of convincing people it's a deterrent?
Well, look, faith in the Conservatives is so low, both going back to the fall of Boris Johnson, Liz Truss's mini-budget, and what they see as a lack of action from Rishi Sunak, that the only way that Rishi Sunak is going to convince them is not through confidence or parliamentary numbers or good messaging. It's going to be through results. So if Rishi Sunak can show that the economy is growing, and we saw results today showing that it wasn't, if Rishi Sunak can prove that NHS waiting lists are falling, if Rishi Sunak can prove that he is stopping the boats, and that doesn't mean a 30% reduction, that means what he set out to do, which is stopping the boats.
That's my key question, actually, James. That 30% reduction that they're talking that up really quite strongly. I mean, do you think that's not good enough for voters relative to stopping the boats?
No, it's not. And it goes back to the point Nigel Farage made there, that compared to a few years ago, these are still stratospheric numbers. And crucially, the Prime Minister said he's going to stop them. Now, if he can deliver that promise, if he can stop them or, get them down to negligible numbers, I don't think anyone's expecting necessarily a complete literal never ever again, but, getting them down to negligible numbers or stopping them entirely, then I think voters will say, OK, fair play, he's done it. But that is a huge task now for the Prime Minister, and he's running out of time.
Well, meanwhile, you, James, have been doing some polling on the public's reaction to Nigel himself during the show, during his time in the jungle, getting to the final, and quite interesting results you've discovered there in terms of the popularity rating coming out of the jungle compared to going into the jungle.
Yeah, so we ran two polls. We ran one before Nigel Farage went in, and with Conservative 2019 voters, so those people that voted for Boris Johnson and the Tories in 2019, absolutely key to the next election for both Labour and the Tories. Before he went into the jungle, Nigel Farage had a net rating of +1 with those voters. So 37% said they had a positive view, 36% a negative view. We ran the poll again this weekend after Nigel came out, and that has really transformed. He's now got a net rating of +18. That's a 7-point swing. 46% say they're positive, only 28% negative. Now, that's a big shift in polling terms. And Rishi Sunak with those same voters, and remember, these are voters that voted for the Conservative Party in 2019, Rishi Sunak is on a rating of -3. So although Nigel Farage might not have been crowned king of the jungle, he certainly seems to be at the moment, at least in Conservative 2019 voters' eyes, if you'll pardon the cringe, Richard, king of the political jungle.
King of the political jungle, James Johnson, thank you so much indeed for those thoughts. There you are, Nigel. Finalist, nearly king of the jungle, but maybe the political one. How do you feel about those poll numbers? When you went in, you said you wanted to reach a broader audience.
A lot of people said to me, don't do it, it'll be a disaster, it'll demean you, people will never look at you seriously again. And I said to them all, don't be such stuff shirts, you know. I mean, I think it is worth the gamble, and people will see who I really am as opposed to who they think perhaps I am. I'm stunned by the numbers. I mean, that is an extraordinary shift in polling terms. And to sit here and think, I'm 21% more popular with Conservative 2019 voters than the Conservative Prime Minister, and I've not even been a member of their party since 1992. It's remarkable. So I'm flattered by it. It shows partly just how much trouble they're in. I think what it also shows is people want political figures, thought leaders, to be approachable human beings, you know, with all their flaws, and I've got a couple of those, but as opposed to this sort of political class of almost non-entities.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an extraordinary process being watched by cameras 24/7.
You can't hide.
You can't hide anything. Well, that is absolutely true.
No, I mean, Richard, I'm thrilled, and it absolutely backs up my decision to go and do it. So, no, I'm delighted.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, listeners and viewers, Nigel is back, of course, next week.